All right, I'm going to call the Board of Directors meeting of the CDTA to order. Today's August 26th. It's about 12 noon. And we have Denise Figueroa on the video. Georgie Nugent's on the phone, right, Georgie?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
And we have several board members here, so we have a quorum for today's meeting. Any objections to the agenda or proposed changes? If not, we'll move on to the next item, the minutes of the June 24th meeting, the last time we were all together. Can I hope you've had a chance to review it and get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Anybody have any changes or suggestions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Recognition updates, we had that last week. Had a nice kickoff to that. It was a good session at the Community Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting. Are we going to do that again next month?
Well, we're still in the backlog, so we might do one more, or hopefully, if things continue to stay on an even keel, we could return to the board meeting venue. It requires, obviously, it requires some capacity juggling.
Yeah.
As you can tell, the people really enjoy it.
And we enjoyed it too.
I know you have. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. Then we'll move on to committee reports. We'll start off with the Board Operations Committee that convened on August 12th. I'll make that report. We had one consent item on that agenda for today's meeting, so we do have a resolution to adopt the strategic framework. As you know, this is the next meaningful step towards completion of the strategic plan that we've been working on since last fall. The board and staff leadership team have finalized the framework for our strategic plan. This consists of a mission statement, 7 strategic pillars which speak to the priorities and direction of the organization. The pillars will help to organize work, develop initiatives, monitor progress. They will be ingrained in the company's activities and drive efforts to widen the mobility options we offer, and they can be updated and modified as appropriate. The framework guides the strategic plan to its final written form, which is starting to get drafted soon. Staff is working with a communications partner to develop a printed document, collateral materials to present and explain the plan to all of our employees, customers, and the community at large. It's important for the board to take formal action on the framework and memorialize the work that we have done. I want to thank the board itself for all the work that has been undertaken, the entire staff that did a great effort, Barbara Gannon, for sticking through this since last year through the pause period to try to get this done. We're close to completion, kind of, sort of, maybe kind of on time. But we do have a resolution 28-2020, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the strategic framework and mission statement.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody have any comments about it? I think the mission statement in particular is always a sort of a key cornerstone for any organization. I think the group really did a great job with providing a mission statement that CDTA provides mobility solutions that connect the region's communities. It's concise, it's to the point. I think it's something that everybody can relate to. Looking forward to the final document and getting that out to the community at large. Without any objections, we'll just kind of move ahead then. All those in favor, say aye of the resolution.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? The resolution is approved. The rest of the meeting consisted of a series of discussion items. We reviewed the items that are on today's agenda, of course. We discussed the collective bargaining agreement and negotiations, which will begin in the spring of 2021. The agreement with the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 1321, expires in June of 2021. It was a good discussion to talk about what some of our priorities for that might be. We also talked about the Troy Transit Center and the ways to advance the development of customer facilities in downtown Troy. it's not likely that the Uncle Sam's Garage location can be developed as originally proposed. So staff is working on evaluating other opportunities in downtown Troy. The next committee meeting is scheduled right here at 110 Waterville Avenue for Wednesday, September 16th at 9:15 a.m. And that concludes my report on that committee. Next. The next item on the agenda is the board operations. No, we just did that. The next committee report, Denise Figueroa from the Performance Monitoring and Audit Committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met on August 19th at noon via Zoom, and also at the office. So we have several agenda items, and the first one is approval of a contract for engine oil. Are you guys getting feedback?
No.
No, you sound good.
Okay, I guess I'm hearing myself in the room. That's what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, I hear an echo too. I think steering.
Maybe if I turn my volume to, no, I don't know. It's all right. Anyway, approval of a contract for engine oil. We had 3 bids that we received to provide heavy-duty engine oil for vehicles. The staff recommends awarding to the low bidder, Brenntag Lubricants Northeast, at $92,800, which represents a 22% price decrease. The contract is for 1 year with an optional renewal year tied to the Consumer Price Index. The total estimated contract value is $185,600. So we will need a motion to award a 1-year contract to Brenntag Lubricants Northeast of Manchester, New Hampshire for $92,800 with an optional year for a total estimated contract value of $185,600.
Can I get a motion for the lubricant contract?
So moved.
Second, Dave. Any questions? This is a routine maintenance item that we talked about in committee. If there aren't any other questions or comments, all those in favor of resolution 29 say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, it's approved. On to the next item, please.
Okay, next item is an approval of a contract for scheduling software maintenance. Hastis software is used for fixed route scheduling. The proprietary maintenance contract includes software updates, trip planning, and issue resolution. The staff recommends a 1-year sole source maintenance contract to Gyro for the Hastis software system. And so we'll need a motion to for this contract to Gyro of Montreal, Quebec. I'm probably mispronouncing their name, sorry, for an amount not to exceed $180,203.
So moved.
It's the non-Greek version, Denise, Giro.
It is Gyro.
You're close.
Sorry.
They won't be offended after the board passes on this, right?
That's right.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any questions or comments about resolution 30 for proprietary software that's been in use for many years here? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution 30, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? It's approved.
Okay, our next item was approval for a contract for protective barriers. The protective barriers have been installed on all the vehicles to protect operators and customers from COVID-19. Because of this health emergency, staff used our emergency procurement procedures to buy barriers from Transit Guard. So we need a motion to award a sole source contract to Transit Guard of Pagosa Springs, Colorado for $480,500.
Can I get a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Dave? Any questions or comments on this? This was funded with CARES Act money.
Yep.
And
Yes.
is it every bus in the fleet? My notes were kind of a little
Every
unclear.
bus.
Every bus,
Every
including
bus.
paratransit buses?
Paratransit.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, good. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed or abstaining? Not hearing any, it's approved.
Okay, our next item was approval of a contract for security services at the Rensselaer Rail Station. We received 9 bids for security services at the station. Staff recommend security services to FBY Security Services, and they were the low bidder. So we will need a motion for a contract to FBY Security Services of Brooklyn, New York, for $162,326, and we estimate the 5-year value at $811,632.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make
to
that
approve-
motion.
Can I get a motion to approve the contract for security services?
I think I should be.
I made the motion.
She moved quick.
Having a good day.
I'll second.
That's all right, good night's sleep, good breakfast, I'm not sure what's going on.
It's the chairman's,
Just being here, maybe.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions about this contract?
Hey, someone asked at the committee meeting, does this mean, we had a whole bunch of new people there that are unfamiliar with the station? Because Chris answered it, it's likely, or someone, it wasn't Chris, it was someone, it's likely that the existing crew will remain, with the new contractor. They just come in to hire the existing crew. In fact, I think this is already in process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, all those in favor of the contract, say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions? Resolution is approved. Next item.
So our next two are to receive money. And so we need a resolution to accept the state grant for the River BRT. We've been awarded a state grant to help operate River BRT service. We discussed this first time operating grant during this year's budget development process. The state requires a board resolution to accept state funding prior to being reimbursed. So we need a resolution to execute an agreement with New York State DOT to accept $4,435,000 to support the River BRT.
Can I get a motion to approve the acceptance of the grant for $4 million?
So moved.
Second? Second. By Dave. Any questions or comments about this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Approved.
Okay, and finally, for motions, we've got a resolution to accept state funds for purchase of 40-foot Gilling buses. That's for $3,461,124 that the state is providing to purchase the buses through the Transportation Modernization and Enhancement Program. The state also supports commuter service between Albany and Ulster County, which is operated by Adirondack Trailways. CDTA is the pass-through agent for this program and will be reimbursed $684,299. So the state requires a board resolution to accept state funding prior to being reimbursed, and we will need a resolution to execute an agreement with New York State DOT to accept $4,145,423 to support the MEP program and the Adirondack Trailways pass-through arrangement.
Get the resolution.
I can make that motion.
Thank you, Denise. Can I get a second on the resolution?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Again, any questions or comments about getting money from the state? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? The resolution is approved. Denise,
Thank you.
continue.
Okay, the next two items were our administrative discussion items, and the first was the monthly management report that was provided by Mike Collins. Our financial picture is solid because of the CARES Act and the partial payment of our state operating assistance. A bright spot in our budget is MRT, mortgage reporting tax, which was up 31% this month and up almost 11% for the year so far. All other revenue categories are well under budget. The total revenue is healthy at 64% above budget, but we are still operating state assistance, still reporting state assistance according to budgeted accruals, not what is received. So there was a withhold of some of the state operating assistance in our last payment. Expenses are down by 11.5%. Any questions on the monthly financial management report?
No.
Okay. Then I'll move on to the monthly non-financial report. Mike Collins also gave that report this month. Total ridership is coming back, and we are down only 13% for the fiscal year. STAR is down 40%, but continues to improve. Our on-time performance for fixed route is at 75%, while STAR on-time performance was at 86%. Any questions on the non-financial report? If not, that concludes my report. Our next meeting is September 23rd, either via Zoom or at the offices.
Thank you, Denise, for your report.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions about that meeting? Then we'll move on to the Community Stakeholder Relations Committee meeting last week. Pat Lance will make that report.
All right. This committee met on August 20th, 2020. The staff provided presentations and updates surrounding COVID-19 efforts. After several months of not hosting our service award presentations due to the COVID limitations, we started them back up this month and held it during the community and stakeholder relations. We awarded 6 employees with a combined 155 years of service. We will continue to hold our service award ceremonies each month from here on out. Jamie Watson and Jonathan Scherzer outlined plans for awarding our Community Champions contest winners. The contest will award 25 CDTA employees and 25 community heroes that have gone above the call of duty during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Awards for internal and external winners will be held over the next 2 weeks. Jamie Watson summarized a monthly media community engagement report. There were 27 media stories on television, in the newspaper, and online. Stories were related to our new River Corridor BRT line and related construction efforts, COVID service updates, and the state's pedal and paddle program that CDPHP cycle is part of. Jamie also discussed the changing landscape of community engagement, updated communications to keep employees, customers, and the public informed about CDTA efforts surrounding COVID-19. The next meeting of this committee will be held Thursday, September 24th, 2020 at 11:30 via Microsoft Teams. That's all I got.
Thank you, Pat. Anybody have any questions for Pat about that meeting? Thank you. Then we'll move on to the Strategic and Operational Planning Committee meeting. Mike Rousseau.
All right, Jamie, thank you. Strategic and Operational Planning Committee met August 20th here at 110 Waterville Ave and via Microsoft Teams. We had no consent agenda items. We did have several administrative discussion items. First being the electric bus pilot. Chris Desney gave a presentation and facilitated discussion on the electric bus pilot. We acquired 4 new Flyer electric buses last fall, and after partnering with the Center for Transportation and the Environment, we started to assess the viability of transitioning to this equipment. We reviewed the technology, including the configuration of the vehicles, the chargers, and the data collection methodology. The buses have been in service since January and early indicators are positive. Maintenance costs per mile and availability are commensurate with light-gauge diesel vehicles. Range performance is as advertised. Major variables that impact range, hourly and mileage-based, include ambient temperature and the nature of the route on which the vehicle is running. Urban core routes are among the most efficient at this time. We discussed how this pilot relates to the broader rollout of additional vehicles and the concerns relating to the infrastructure required to support them. We will continue to have follow-up conversations on these topics. The second item was the September 2020 service changes. Ross Farrell gave a presentation and facilitated discussion on the September 2020 changes. Much of the system will remain unchanged except for the resumption of school and university services, schedule adjustments to select routes, and the possible rollout of services for state employees. Resumption of school services includes support for the University at Albany, RPI, Skidmore, Albany School District, and other private schools. Due to their slow return, it is unknown when the access and corresponding service will begin for state workers. Other changes include adjusting select routes to better match service levels with the van, including numbers 190, number 1, and number 7. Details were provided by Ross. Third item was the River BRT update. Ross Farrell and Jeremy Smith gave a presentation and facilitated discussion on the November 2020 River BRT rollout. We reviewed the goals of the project, including faster service, reduced travel times, eliminating transfers, and high frequencies. The Blue Line will have limited stop service featuring branches at the north and south ends with 7 to 12 minute weekday frequencies during most of the day and 15 to 30 minutes in the early morning and late evening. Capital and operating costs were reviewed. Construction activities are primarily on schedule with 8 locations left to be completed before November. Amenities include improved pedestrian access, TSP, benches, rails, bike racks, and garbage receptacles. We will also have green shelter and heated sidewalks, solar panels, and USB chargers at select locations. Due to late additions to the stop locations, there are a few sites that will be completed next year. Availability of pylons is being monitored. The Troy Garage is also progressing well and is scheduled to be completed in October. Commissioning of buses and non-revenue vehicles are also on schedule. And the final item was the FlexFare pilot. John Scherzer gave a presentation and facilitated discussion on the Flex pilot. Our Flex microtransit pilot program has been operating since January, providing service in a zone covering Colony, Guilderland, and Latham. It has served more than 10,000 customers since inception. The next step in the pilot is to install fare boxes to evaluate fare collection and integrate it into our CAD AVL system. The suggested price point is targeted between the cost of ride hailing and fixed route service. We are recommending a $3 per ride within a zone and a 10-trip product as well. During this phase of the pilot, we will assess how the fares affect demand. Next steps include integrating Flex into our fare structure, developing an education and marketing plan, and developing a strategy for expanding the program. We had no executive session items scheduled. The next meeting of the committee will be Thursday, September 24th at 12 p.m., either here at 110 Waterville Ave or via Microsoft Teams. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody have any questions for Mike about that committee meeting? No. Okay, then we'll move on. Next is the CEO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is in your packet. Although listening to the committee chairs, you can get sort of a flavor for what is going on in CPTA, and I'm kind of struck by the amount of activity, the amount of new projects, the amount of development that is occurring while we struggle as everyone is through COVID-19. I think that's what sets us apart. That's what makes us different. We continue to move forward. Yeah, some of the things are different. Some things have changed. Our expectations may be modified a bit, but you know, buildings are going up. Soon buildings will come down. New services are being added, and we're adapting. It's not all pleasant, but we're adapting. Hats off to the maintenance department. 72 hours, they installed 250 barriers. We had a pretty tight timeline. We thought we had plenty of time, but project director, Mr. Zarcone, and he really was. He was the jack of all trades on this one. Just the unexpected happened. Things didn't show up when we expected them to, wanted them to show up, but the maintenance department, when challenged, is an interesting group of people. It seemed to be more about the challenge than the barriers, but they're all up. We're adjusting, it's different. They don't all work the way they're supposed to, and sometimes the magnetized lock doesn't work. We're going to have to add that to our activities and cleaning and keeping them functional. And the hardware, as you would imagine, is it's opened and closed gently, works pretty well. When it gets opened and closed, not so gently, it doesn't work all that well. But it's done, and I'd say A- all the way around. A only because we're not sure long term how this is going to go. We've resumed fare collection. That went, I think, smoother than any of us expected. We realized it was going to be a lot easier to turn fares off than to turn fares back on. And it's now behavior modification, getting people to understand that the rear door is not the point of entry, it's the front door. The rear door is the point of exit. We're trying to use it to get to the sort of traffic flow we've always wanted, where it's front door on, rear door off. That's still a work in progress. We'd like to have that done, but all in all, worked out well. We've gotten all the Navigator accounts sort of balanced out, credited, readjusted. Some people have been 6 months with a Navigator account that they thought had X on it, when in reality we thought it had Y on it. So there's been lots of work by the people who handle that in our sales unit. But all has worked out pretty well. Phil Perella tracks that very closely, and we'll start to provide you with sort of a glimpse on how that's doing. How's cash doing? How are we balancing out? It's not 100%. We didn't expect it to be back to 100%, but eventually, hopefully, we're reporting positive numbers on fare revenue. I've tried to keep everybody up to date, but in full disclosure, you know that over the past 5 or 6 months, we've had several employees test positive. We have a process and a procedure when that happens, what we do. We've had a number of people, more than 2 dozen, in various quarantine states. There's precautionary, there's mandatory. Most of the people are in precautionary quarantine. That tends to happen when they say, I was with or around someone who tested positive. There's a whole process for us to trace and track, and they go into a quarantine period. We're getting quite good at it. We've had to designate staff. It's a whole set of staff people who handle these things. But all in all, it's worked out pretty well. Right this minute, right now, knock wood, we have no employees who who are positive right now. We have actually only 1 person in quarantine. That number kind of fluctuates. I expect that will continue, for a while. We have had, you followed and I've reported to you, we've had a couple of people report that they are positive and they've ridden a bus. Usually that happens as part of the tracing process in the counties, Department of Health, and they weren't knowingly positive riding a bus. What has happened is they tested positive, and it's the tracing process. I rode the bus 3 days before I tested positive, so the counties contact us. There's a whole process now of notification. So in full disclosure, all of that is happening. We have staff that handles that, and it's part of the new normal, I would say. As far as the strategic plan is concerned, I didn't say anything while the board was adopting the framework, but I mean, I could not be any prouder. I don't know of very many companies that could have forged through what we were dealing with and completed really one of the, I'd say, handful of most important things that a board and I'd say executive staff deal with in business world. But we did it. It was a little rocky, maybe the last third of it. It was a little foreign, I think, the last third of it. It was hard because we couldn't meet in person. But I think it really reflects who we are. I think it reflects what we want to be. So hats off to the board and the staff team that really put a lot of time and effort into it. We expanded that group, it's around 14, 15 people, but it really is, I think, reflective of staff leadership. They did a great job. We're working, as was reported, we're working with a communications partner to develop, the glitzy report, but also to develop the collateral materials that make it real, that explain it to employees, to have them understand why it's important to what they do and how they can effectuate change, positive change, to our customers and to our stakeholders. What we want to make sure we don't do is develop glitzy material that people just toss up on a shelf and never look at. If we do that, unfortunately, the year of hard work is really wasted. So we're really paying close attention to making sure it's, and we have examples of recent work that's really good. That a lot of infographics, graphs, pictures, photos, less on a lot of words that sound good, but really aren't going to help us to make the plan real. You'll see this throughout the year. You see work plans a lot. Well, a lot of now the work plans will be tied to the goals that each pillar defines. So in addition to being the pathway, it really will be the work plan that it will generate the work plans for staff. So thank you to everybody. Really good job. More good news, our nurse practitioner is on the job here at CDTA, down at the CDTA Health Center. She's not seeing patients just yet. She's basically developing the standard operating procedures because the first wave, she'll do the standard drug and alcohol testing that is now going to sort of happen in the health center. And then she'll start seeing people as they have issues. And God knows, with 700 people, we've got people who have issues every day, health issues. And she is, she's up for the task. She's very good. She's very personable too. I think she's going to do a great job. So we're looking forward to the health center. This is a different approach. This is another CDTA innovation, so to speak, with our partners at CDPHP. There are not many companies doing this locally, and we hope that by integrating the health center with our employees and with our standard testing, that we can really affect change by getting people to think about their health more regularly and to understand how it affects their work life and their family life. So a lot of work there, but we'll have an event, I'm sure, at some point when she's ready. But she's down there a couple days a week right now, getting it set up. We mentioned some buildings will come down. The Boakland building across the street, we now own. It will come down in a couple weeks. We're in there doing some mitigation. Code word, I think you know what that means right now. Not too many buildings don't require some work before you take them down. That will be a parking facility, and really what we're trying to do is create a campus feel, so that it's not the thing across the street. There'll be connections, so it's easy for people to get across the way. That work is tied to service expansion and BRT projects, and I really appreciate the board's commitment to this work, which is complicated because it's linked. There are a bunch of projects linked together, a bunch of funding sources linked together, and one thing affects the other. And I know at times it was, what are we talking about? We're talking about BRT in Troy, and we're we're talking about a garage expansion in Albany, we're talking about taking a building down for parking. It sometimes seemed like it was an odd mix, but they're all tied together, and they're all sort of a domino, they're all tied to fund sources, so appreciate you sticking with us. As Mike Grisham reported, a lot of activity. The blue line is real. If you drive the corridor, you can see some of the stations, some of the highlights of what will be BRT service. If you're over in Troy, stop at the garage, take a look. That work is fast coming to completion. That garage is expanded. That garage now will have a new maintenance work area. First time since it was built, they're opened in 1980. One of the few things that predates me. But you know, BRT will go. BRT, sometime in November, we'll get the exact date. Bus delivery schedule is set. We'll see those buses in a matter of weeks, and we'll roll. Must point out with pride that we continue to be the only upstate system to offer this advanced service to our community. So we have two. We have a third in the pipeline. It is funded. The Washington Western BRT, and when that's completed, you know, we used to joke about the vision of 40 miles of BRT. It was just, you know, this number that we were shooting at. I don't know if any of us really thought we would get there, but we will get there. It's real, and we got it done. Lots of activity with our cycle program, which is now, you know, after sort of being late to get going because of COVID, is, you know, on a path up. We've got about 60% of the bikes deployed. Remember, we expanded the fleet, so we have 500 bikes. About 60% of them are deployed right now. More to follow. 10 weeks under our belt. We've got about 10,000 rides and a bunch of programs now tied to it. It's expanding. More college students using it. We have a new relationship with True Hotel up by the airport, where their guests, when they're there, can use the bike program. So it's constantly being expanded and changed so that it kind of, you know, keeps it fresh. But really, though, over the last 6 months, I couldn't be prouder of our team, of the board, you know, everybody for what you've done to keep us, you know, out in front. It almost feels like we haven't missed a beat. I know we have. I know some things are a lot different, but you know, our ridership right now is at about 85% of what it was the same time last year. If you look at bus-only systems, there aren't too many that are at 85%, and that's without the return of college students and school districts. That's happening right now. We're concerned about it because we have to balance their arrival with, you know, the new requirements of capacity. I should also tell you that we have been monitoring face mask compliance. We have a system that we use to give us an idea of how many people are wearing face coverings, and it's plus 90%. It's not 100%, and it changes. It changes by location, but you know, we're just over 90%. We'd love to be at 100%, and we hope that the return of college students who seem to be aware of that and seem to be compliant with mask wearing, that maybe they put us over the top. So we're at 85% before colleges return. It wouldn't surprise me after Labor Day if, you know, we're, you know, 90 or 95% of what we were at the same time last year. So, you know, another job well done. We've been, you know, we've probably bored some people with the amount of changes, service changes we've made. We've made more in 6 months probably than we have in the last 5 years, honestly. But we've tried to be strategic about it, or tactical, and use our information, use our data. We have plenty of data that tells us where, you know, where we need service and what we don't. STAR's been a little slower to come back. It's consistent. It's up, but it's at about 60-65% of what normal is. The last of the Mohegans, so to speak, is NX, our Northway commuter service, which, you know, ridership is probably 10% of what it normally is, but that's so closely tied to state workforce, and right now the people who use that service are not paying offices. So that's the last thing to come back, and that ties to the board, state worker contract. So all good, great things going on. Workforce is doing the best they can under different conditions. That concludes my report. Any questions or comments? Glad to give it a whirl.
Anybody have any questions for Carl? Well, you can take a shot at him.
Take a shot anytime you want.
You know, I was interested in the webinar that you had with APTA, and just a couple of questions. I'm not sure if it came up or not, but one is, do you get a sense of how other systems are dealing with COVID across the country? Are there certain systems that are really struggling with it? Are they of a certain size? You don't really read too much early on. There were certainly major cities that were struggling, and haven't really heard much since that.
Yeah, and there's others here who can jump in who are very active. That worries me a little bit. You heard a lot early, and the big systems are struggling financially for sure. Bus-only systems, I think a lot are doing as well as we are. They may not talk about it. People tend to focus on the ones that aren't doing well and what are the problems. And I'd say, there are a lot of different reactions. For example, some systems have dispensers on every bus that, give you a face mask, that sort of way deal. I think barriers are, if they're not universal, they will be universal soon. There have been a lot of issues with compensation. We chose to handle it a little differently. We were proactive early and provided compensation in the form of a bonus. I think some systems are in trouble. Some systems are in serious trouble. And a lot of the private companies that support what we do and our contractors are in real financial trouble because they don't have all the other business that used to, make them go. Our partners at Brown, the only wheel they're turning right now is the wheel that they turn for us on the North. They do all the Sienna work, a lot of Sienna work, or college work. None of that's there. Trips to New York City, trips to Atlantic City, trips to Mohegan Sun. None of that is happening, or if it is, it's minimal in nature. A lot of interesting work that I read about with the ride-hailing companies, rideshare. That has changed. So some of that work is done. I don't know, Dave or staff are regulars on the webinar series. If I missed anything important.
Well, I think that just one thing to chime in about with that is APTA's recovery task force that was put into place to talk a lot about how these systems are coming back online. And what we're seeing is a lot of the bigger systems have not moved back to front door boarding. They're still rear door boarding. They are not collecting fares at this time. So it's interesting to see the Northeast corridor has certainly moved a little bit ahead of the rest of the country in that sense from the calls and from some of the leaders that are on those calls, and those are generally CEOs that are on those calls talking about how their systems are coming back online. One of the biggest things APTA is doing is they want systems to essentially adopt a seal that says that they are doing X, Y, and Z to make sure their systems are safe. So that's in development right now, and there'll be more to come on that. But it's really a cohesive way to get the systems to come back together and show a unified front as we continue to move through COVID.
And we have signed on to that pledge. I think we're pretty early in signing on because I reviewed what was required to pledge, and we were doing all of that and more. So, and the thought process there is the strength of APTA, the strength of the industry, would assure people who are maybe on the fence about using public transportation, and you read a lot about that right now. It's a 50-50 game. Every day there's something that says, hey, transit's great, transit's safe, you should have no issue. And you read it the next day, organization XYZ says, oh boy, you might want to stay away from vehicles where you're sharing a ride. So I think that pledge is important. I think all of us need to do the types of things things that APTA is asking us to do, suggesting that we do. And frankly, APTA, I think, have been, performed very well through this. They provide the sounding board, they provide the central source, you can share ideas. You know, shame on you if you're not participating, because there's a lot to learn. At least for us, we want to make sure we're doing everything. If there's an idea out there that's a good idea and someone else is doing it, you know, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. I can tell you that in the maintenance area, you know, Lance and his team, you know, are reviewing new products and service, new introductions all the time. We just got one this morning. I haven't been in his office, we got it. I mean, every day. You know, so we've moved past cleaning now to disinfecting, and you know, that's the focus. And there will be just a matter of time where there's, you know, filters on board the vehicles that will be constantly killing virus. I say virus because not just COVID. It will be a constant process. And we're right pretty close to that, right? It's still very expensive. But
it is expensive, but we are in the process of testing it and reviewing the results.
just a lot going on. It changes. It seems to change every day. I mean, we just had a ruling from the health department on return to work, which was, it changed. So why are we waiting? Kind of thing. You know, the testing's a little bit of an issue. If an employee is suspected of positive, you send the employee to be tested. Depending on where they go, it could be up to 5 days before you get a test result. That's business days, so you know, you're waiting, and then you have all the people who may have been exposed sort of in this limbo period. Employee comes back negative, but if it was on a Wednesday, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, so you don't get the word till Tuesday. So I like everybody else, think that we need to get to a rapid testing system. That's my political report.
Thank you. Dave, anything to add to that?
No, I think it's all covered.
Good. Very interesting.
It is. It is. It's never thought I'd see the tail end of my career dealing with something like this, but again, I guess I can't say it enough. The team here they're pretty resilient, and they quietly adapt. Sometimes I'll say, gee, we're not moving fast enough, but just give it another day or two, and it seems like we get it done. We change, we modify, we get it done. You know, meanwhile, we keep bringing in state money. We pass resolutions to take it. We never, I think in my many years here, I don't think we've ever not passed a resolution to take money.
No, I think you're 100% right.
Just kind of odd to me, but I'm glad to. That concludes my report.
All right. Well, thanks for the update on everything, Carl. Appreciate it. We don't have an executive session today. Anybody have any questions, closing comments?
No?
Our next meeting is scheduled for September the 30th, Wednesday, 12 noon. Again, I'm sure it'll be a combination of Microsoft Teams and here at the office. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. So we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good Labor Day.
Yes.
Okay.
Forgot about that.
Nobody remembers what day of the week it is. It's okay.
Hey, we're counting on Georgie to come in and paint the wall and get us ready for the new mission statement.
There you go.
I think she left. Yeah. You have anything coming in for this, or are we
Yes, I have the food out in the lobby.
dying?
She do that right there?
Georgie says.
No, the story was, that was